Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Chat and Channel Session. In today's session, we're going to be discussing you and your story and how the stories that you've been telling yourself or have been allowing others or the world to tell you may be holding you back in life, and how you can switch to a different story to start to change your reality. But first, let me welcome back those of you who are returning. I really appreciate you. And to those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Danielle, #damsel at These Enlightened Edits of damseldesigns.com. I am a spiritual and psychic medium, quantum Sikhem and shamanic energy healer, spiritual empowerment and life and consciousness coach, as well as energy artist, teacher, and so much more. And this is Chat and Channel Session, where my guides, and in some cases some of you, present me with a topic and we do a stream of consciousness channeling on it. I invite you to participate, provided that you are not driving or operating heavy machinery, of course, in the chat portion of Chat and Channel Session by joining the live premieres weekly on my YouTube channel, by leaving a comment, question, or review, or by my favorite way for you to participate, which is by getting out a journal or the notes app on your phone or favorite device and doing some stream of consciousness writing along with me as I channel. For those of you who do this, you often find that you're able to tap into your own insight and intuition and pick up information that is specific to you and your situations related to the topic that we are channeling. Today, as I said, we are channeling about your story. So this consciousness journaling may be particularly helpful for you to start to tap into what those unconscious or subconscious stories are that have been playing in the back of your head and maybe preventing you from your manifestations or the reality and life that you dream of. If you need some help and perspective in this, you can always reach out to me on my website, Damsel Designs. That's DAMCL Designs.com, where you will find things like quantum and Akashic Records reading sessions, mini readings, and so much more, and where you will also find a link to work with me more in depth with quantum Sikhem or shamanic energy healing, or life and consciousness or spiritual empowerment coaching. I would love to work with more of you in this capacity as we work to connect you with the dots of the divine design. So now that we've discussed all that and you know where to find more of me and my work, let's get back to the topic at hand and discuss more of this work and your story like we were talking about. If you are a follower of mine on Instagram at These Enlightened Edits, which I invite you to be, you may know that I've been discussing this story in some of my lives recently. And the idea of we are not our stories and that we have the power to change our stories and our mindsets and our attitudes and our perceptions has become increasingly important in my life recently and in my work and channelings for you guys, and also from my guides in bringing this up and them asking for me to present it as a full chat and channel session breakdown. So that, as I said, is what we're going to be doing today. As someone who works with the Akashic Records and works with souls across multiple lifetimes, if you are a multi-life subscriber of that belief, if not, that's okay too. But as someone who also communicates with a great deal of souls on this side of life and the other side of life, I can tell you that although we carry our stories with our soul, we are in fact not them. And this idea of disentangling oneself from the aspects of our story that we no longer wish to live or live by is very, very powerful. Because as we learn about ourselves, as we learn about unconscious and subconscious beliefs and where we've taken these stories on along the way, we can better act as co-creators in our lives, in our stories, in our reality matrix, whatever you like to say, because we're no longer being influenced or so influenced by the momentum of those stories that we've been carrying or that we've allowed ourselves to take on throughout this or multiple lifetimes. So this, in my opinion, is why we do things like inner child healing or past life work if you subscribe to that. It's why we do things about our mindfulness and mental health and boundaries so that we can take better stock in what unconscious stories, especially, we are allowing ourselves to perpetuate and continue in the background and how they may be affecting us in the foreground of our consciousness. In other words, most of us have at least 2 tracks playing in our heads at any given time. And these tracks are influencing the co-creation of our reality, in my opinion, and at the very least are influencing how we see, create, and receive from the world. So these will be the conscious tracks, the things that are playing in the foreground, in the recognized and easily recognized parts of our consciousness. And the other track will be coming from our subconscious or unconscious. And these will be our belief systems that we've crafted over time, over lifetimes, over going through things in life, perhaps going through abuses or negative experiences, and beliefs that we've taken on as coping mechanisms or compensation mechanisms or ways to survive and get through them. And what we've learned from life, whether that be from critical or unnurturing parents or from other traumas that we've been through, is how we can't count on certain things, or how if we do certain things or say certain things, it may or may not go right or wrong for us. And so those types of things shape our unconscious beliefs. They are our wounds, in essence, and our ego and parts of our brain and parts of our id seeks to help us survive by crafting lessons out of those wounds. And so even if we don't consciously believe that everyone is out to get us, if we've experienced a lot of that in the past, then we can have this unconscious belief playing in the background of our mental track, saying that we can't trust anyone, that we can't count on anyone or anything. And so obviously that would make it quite difficult to manipulate the reality that we're in, to change it, to heal it, or to manifest something different if on some level we are still listening to and playing and putting focus on a track that says that we can't count on anything, right? So that would be a story that we tell ourselves, because even if that's been our experience up until a certain point that we haven't been able to count on anything, that's a story that we're carrying forward into the next moment and into the next moment and into the next moment, if we so choose to continue to be unaware of it on a conscious level, or continue to put so much focusing on it by not healing it or shifting the energy to a more positive storyline or belief that we choose consciously. So those would be how the unconscious beliefs tend to influence us negatively and control us and influence more of the outcomes of the things that we are consciously working on manifesting or healing. For more in understanding this, you may want to check out my recent chat and channel session entitled The Big Secret in the Secret, Manifesting and Reality Co-Creation. That was posted fairly recently to when this one is being posted, so I hope you enjoy the deep dive on that and more about unconscious beliefs. This is something that I'm really passionate about understanding and healing, and helping you guys understand and heal how those unconscious beliefs are crafting so much of our storylines and influencing so much of our reality going forward. So that's a brief history of the unconscious beliefs and storylines. Let's also talk about the conscious ones and the ones that we can more easily become aware of. So in a sense, the conscious storylines are the ones that we continue to say or speak or share out loud. Now, these can be influenced by the unconscious beliefs and storylines, But when they get to a certain point where we are actually sharing them continuously with others, or repeating them to ourselves and recognizing them as thoughts, they become more conscious. Now, once they become more conscious, obviously it's a little easier than the deep work we tend to have to do with healing or rerouting energy from unconscious beliefs. So once these are conscious thoughts, once you recognize that you are in the habit of sharing things that you no longer agree with or want to perpetuate, then you can work on that habit and work on shifting it and shifting the language that you are using to others and to yourself. So what do I mean by this? This would be things like understanding that when someone asks you how you are, you can have boundaries in that moment, and you don't have to share if you don't feel comfortable or don't think it's a healthy thing to do, all of the negative things that you've been going through. And this is not to say keep everything inside, but I do notice that a lot of us tend to take on that how are you question, and then all of a sudden everything that we've been dealing with comes flooding up to the surface, and people kind of feel obligated to share or out of control in their sharing. And what happens, right? We're repeating a lot of things that we've already made it through, that are already over, but because we haven't dealt with them fully, we're bringing them up and telling that story of them again, and still telling it in a way as though we are being victimized, because anything that happens to us can be perceived as us being a victim, whereas anything that we can take influence over and we can take stock in, that's us being a co-creator. Now, obviously things happen, the world happens, people harm or unintentionally harm others. And yes, we've all been a victim at times, but the way that you stop telling your story in a victim-based way is you take ownership of whatever part of that experience you can, most prominently your reaction to it. This does not mean that you have to take stock over other people or the world's actions in terms of whatever their karma is or whatever they have chosen to do. But this does mean that you get to take responsibility for however you have reacted to it or however you are reacting to it. Now, you could be honest, provided that the person or the people that you're sharing with are respectful of you and it's a healthy situation and a trustworthy situation to do that in. And honestly say, I've been through some things and I'm just not dealing with it the best yet. But I want you to be careful in the language that you use and in the stories that you tell to yourself and others. This does not mean that we have to be perfect every time in recrafting the story. There are obviously situations where it's healthy to vent, again, provided that the person you are venting to and with is a trustworthy source for you to do this with, has respect for you, will not influence the situation with more of their negative beliefs. So this could be things like very, very trusted and higher vibe friends and family members, therapists, energy healers like myself, whoever is trustworthy for you to actually vent to, and whoever and however you can do so where you are respecting the other person and their energy as well, and respecting that not everyone necessarily, whether you trust them or not, is going to be in a current position to handle any negative stories that you may want to vent about. So being responsible and respectful in how we approach others about our stories, and checking with them if it's something that they can handle, if venting to them is something that they can handle at the moment. Now, none of us are perfect, but if we forget to check first, it is also a helpful response to apologize afterwards if something was perhaps overwhelming, or if we can say, I'm so sorry I didn't check with you before I vented that. I wasn't even thinking. I apologize. Is there anything I could do for you when I'm feeling better to help balance the situation and bring more respect? And of course, thank them for being there for you and being a space holder for you in this or any of these types of situations. In my experience, this is how we have more healthy and balanced type relationships, whether they are personal friends and family relationships or professional relationships. Because even if someone is a professional, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are approaching them, if it's outside of an agreed upon way to do so, in a time where they are able to deal with our venting or reactions. So in a professional sense, this is where I'm speaking about, therapists that you will have an appointment with. And yes, of course, you can reach out outside of those therapy times in the events of emergency, but also be understanding that until it's an agreed upon experience, they may not be able to be there for you in the time or way that you are most needing at that time, or thinking or using your stories to tell yourself that you are needing at that time. Remember, because it is all about our stories, and our stories are controlled not only by our unconscious beliefs, but by how those unconscious beliefs also fuel things like our anxiety and in our automated, pressurized reactions and response systems. So in my opinion, this is why it's really also helpful to be discerning about when you are giving into things like venting, be understanding of yourself when you need to do that, but also checking in to understand what we are telling and perpetuating in terms of those stories when we are venting, and then also being discerning of the types of people that we choose to vent to or share personal things with, so that you know that you're not adding more fuel and focus to the fire of your negative experiences, but you are actually diffusing them or transmuting them into a more powerful story for you. What would that look like? What would it look like also to know and give yourself honor and worthiness that you do not have to share all parts of your story with everyone or in every situation? Sometimes we feel obligated to share the things that we've been going through, and it can, in effect, sometimes make those things worse. Again, this does not mean deal with everything on your own. It means be selective and use discernment with how and when and why you are sharing your story. Do you feel better after you share your story? Or do you feel just that you've released the tension, but then notice that sometimes because who you've shared your story with or how you've shared your story, you feel worse afterwards? I kind of akin it to drinking to relieve yourself of tension or take the edge off, and then having a hangover afterwards. Yeah, in the moment, you may feel a little better riding off the high of that alcohol, but afterwards, are you really going to feel better? And becoming more self-aware and self-responsible for yourself, and thus becoming more aware and self-responsible for how you are co-creating your reality, means not only thinking in terms of the short term, in terms of what will relieve the tension in that moment, but perhaps make things worse in the long run. So this is what I really like to work on myself and help my clients through, so that we can be creating more of the lives that we want. Now, does this mean everything becomes perfect right away? Sometimes, but not necessarily. There usually are transition periods, and we are continuously learning in life as long as we are alive and experiencing it. So things will come up from your psyche, from your wound signatures and projections, for you to work on them as and when you are ready. And the goal is never to be perfect with it. It's just to respond better each time as you can. This doesn't mean every time we're going to respond better, but noticing and giving yourself appreciation and kudos when you can bounce back from telling your story in a negative way in a quicker way the next time and the next time. Give it more of a positive spin. Now, this doesn't mean spiritually bypass things, but it means taking the lessons from the experience and deciding to tell a different story with them, deciding to learn those lessons in a different way going forward or next time, right? Once you can recognize the lesson that an experience, positive or negative, was trying to teach you, you can decide, once you become conscious of it, how to learn it the next time, ideally. Now, will the universe respond in kin to this every single time? Maybe, maybe not, but it happens more and more frequently when and as you make decisions because the universe mostly responds to your energy and where you are putting your focus. If you are putting so much of your focus on the negative aspects and then in just relieving the tension but not actually resolving your issues fully, then you're going to get more of those type of experiences in your life until you shift it. This is why the universe loves to respond to decisions that we stick by and then do the work to place our focus and belief and power in. This means once you decide, yeah, I really recognize that I put myself through something to learn the hard way, or I keep attracting these relationships where I learn the hard way, and make the decision that you're going to go inside and recognize what unconscious beliefs or stories you're telling about this in the moment and carrying forward from the past, and work to shift the energy away from those storylines that are attracting things to you that you don't agree with. Then that decision gets to be more respected by the universe because you are shifting the power. Even if you don't know exactly how you're going to learn the next lesson in a better way going forward, deciding that what would it feel like to learn in a positive way or in a more positive way? Gosh, I don't know. I've never really learned this type of lesson in a positive or more positive way, but I'm open to it. I'm curious about it. I'm going to place my power then in that curiosity. I'm going to pour my focus into that curiosity of what would it feel like to have someone respect me when maybe I have a pattern of not being respected? What would it feel like to overcome a situation fully rather than have it be repeating? And that curiosity will evoke a more positive response and deliverance system from the universe, in my experience. This is also where I like to get really juicy with myself and with my clients and understand where our unconscious consents are going, right? So this is what we agree to on an unconscious level because of those belief systems or because of the magnetization and the attractant of those woundings that we are not recognizing because of the magnetizing power of those stories that are playing in the background that are based on our wounds and unconscious beliefs, and allowing us to continue to consent to experiences coming into our reality or into our lives until we recognize them and shift a belief or a consent from the unconscious into the conscious and remove consent if we need to. So while I do energy healing with myself and with others and with clients, when we go into aspects of the past, of your past, of what your story has been, we do so not to change things in a kind of back to the future type way, but to change your perception of how that event or how those events hit home for you, how they shaped your unconscious consents or belief systems and the magnets that you have sitting within your soul, continuing to tell stories and project from those places so that you can perceive the event in a different way going forward and stop the storylines playing from your unconscious to shift the focus and the power out of there and into the stories that you want to tell on a conscious level. So we are going back in time in a sense, but we're not doing so to change the past or to give other people Mandela type effects about the past. We're doing so because it is your past, it is your story, and you have been telling it a certain way or allowing life and the universe or your parents' voices to tell it to you or society to tell it to you in a certain way, most probably in ways that are limiting you or victimizing you continuously because these issues are unrecognized or unresolved. And once you can resolve them to a certain degree or start to perceive them differently, then you really have charge of your storytelling and co-creative power, because whatever you are creating and whatever stories you are telling and working to infuse upon yourself consciously are not going to be tainted with so many of your past projections. And you are removing the focus, whether it's conscious focus or unconscious focus, from those areas and putting it all in, putting all the chips or as many of them as possible to the stories that you want to tell for yourself now. And I know it can sound overly simplified, but it can become and start to become more simple just to tell ourselves different things, to start to break down the habits of perceiving things in certain, probably negative ways and shifting them as we can. Okay, is this telling me the truth? Is this storyline, is this thought telling me the truth? Is the world really out to get me? Does everyone hate me? Do people treat me bad intentionally? Or can I tell a different story about this? Maybe someone's having a bad day. Maybe I'm continuing to put myself in precarious situations because of these past storylines. Simple little shifts over time to shift those habits really can make a huge difference. And I'm sorry if you hear something in the background. I'm getting a helicopter overhead, which we don't often do in my area. I feel to back up the intensity of this message. Now, going back in time, healing your past perceptions, that's probably not going to be so simple, especially while you are sitting within your own experience. That is something that I have cultivated and really always done, and luckily have found a lot more validated language and experience in as I've studied other people's ways of doing this as well. So I encourage you, if you are in a position to get help with these things, to take stock and understanding of your whole and holistic, complete energy field and storylines and perceptions and all of that. Reach out to me if you're called. Use that link on my website, Damsel Designs, that's DAMCL designs.com, that says it will help you contact me and apply for one of my energy healing or coaching containers. I would love to work with more of you in this capacity because I find that it is such powerful work. And as someone who has tried to do the majority of this work on myself and has done so with clients as well, I can tell you doing it for someone else is so much better, or with someone else is so much better, because the process gets to be expedited, because you get to be supported, because you don't have to focus on your energy of what the things you are picking up on, plus holding space, plus feeling the feelings and healing or rerouting the energy of those feelings. So if you can get help from someone like myself and a therapist, if you can combine therapies, I never recommend this work over therapy. I love to do it in conjunction, and spiritual work in conjunction with any therapy or medical treatment that you may need. I really encourage you to reach out for help. It can help you move through, as I said, this process so much more quickly. But remember, there are always things that you can do on your own. Being more self-aware, understanding what language you are using to tell or perpetuate certain stories, picking up and noticing on them, and asking your higher self or your soul or your guide teams where these patterns or habits may be coming from. These are things that you can do right now. These are things that you can do every day in terms of asking yourself if your thoughts are true, if these stories are the ones that you want to continue. What stories do you want to tell about yourself? This doesn't mean lie and that you have to be a liar or that you have to be delusional, although many manifestors do choose to go that route in terms of ignoring the 3D, but finding that balance between which you continue to tell and put so much energy behind, and which you choose to diffuse the storylines that you no longer want to tell and transfer that energy back into yourself rather than into your storyline, and then use the energy sitting within yourself to tell the story in a different way until you and your reality can tell a different story altogether. Telling ourselves stories may seem, as I said, simple or fanciful, but it is the essence of manifesting, of healing, of affirming something different, right? That is a different storyline. Imagine it like your favorite character in a book or on a TV show or in a film. What happens when they have a storyline change? Parts of their personality shift, right? They recognize certain things about themselves and can use it to tell and tap into that different aspect, that more evolved aspect. I love to use this example with books that are of a series or of television shows that go on for an extended period of time with the same character or actor, because what do your favorite characters look like? If you went back to the beginning of the story, would you recognize them from a few books or a few seasons of that show in? Or would you be able to see, wow, they were so young then in how they told their stories? They were more immature, no matter how old they were, right? They were more immature with their relationships. Wow, they finally resolved that. They finally got a healthy relationship in their life. Think about yourself as one of these characters. You are the only one who can co-create you and your story with source, unless you choose to give that power and focus away to your wounds, to the limitations and limited beliefs of society, or to those that are or have been critical in your life. And this is why we go back to understand where and why you have been giving that power away, whether that is within your own self or to other toxic or negative people in your life, and how you can call that power back to you and use it to tell yourself and create and receive and enjoy and integrate your new stories. So with that, beautiful soul, I'm going to close out our session for today so that you can keep thinking on this, so that you can do some stream of consciousness journaling and writing and recognizing the parts of yourself that aren't even from you. Maybe they're from an ancestral karma or habit or trauma or belief, right? That says that things have to be really hard, or that you have to be limited, or that you have to have a certain body type or sickness that has been passed on. Maybe it's from the way that your teachers influenced you, whether they were teachers in school or even people that claim to be or were spiritual teachers for you earlier in your journey, before you were more at this point of your awakened consciousness and ready to take responsibility for yourself and your story in a more empowering way. It is absolutely okay to outgrow certain teachers, religions, or ways of influencing reality. Those things, it doesn't mean that they were wrong, but they serve you up until a certain point, until you grow into a new way of being or understanding. So I know a lot of people are on their second or third or fourth wave of awakening, and sometimes we feel guilty about listening to or following certain paths earlier in our journey. But I want to let you know it's okay to outgrow them. Even if at some point you outgrow my teachings, it's healthy. Your growth is always healthy. And every step along the way, in my experience, is important. Even these negative and unconscious beliefs and consents, they are there to help us survive to a certain next level. But once you are ready to level up, once you are truly ready to change your story, once the student is ready, the next teacher will appear. And if you have been here today or for any of my chat and channel sessions or one-on-one works with me, I really appreciate you allowing me and the universe allowing me to be one of your perspective teachers. Teacher does not mean higher than you are. It just means a different perspective than you currently have to help you understand you and your choices about your life and your beliefs better. And it is my honor to do that. Thank you so much for being here for chat and channel session today. I encourage you to use the chat and channel session playlist link that's on my YouTube channel with a backlog of over 50 chat and channel sessions, and or continue to be or hopefully become a follower or a subscriber of chat and channel session on any of the listening platforms. If you are on Spotify, there is an additional feature if you would like to become a low-cost monthly subscriber to support chat and channel session and gain access to additional additional sessions and information. You will also find me on Audible and Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. Links to all of that will be somewhere in the description or on my website, Damsel Designs. That's DAMCLdesigns.com, where you can find me to reach out to do energy healing or life and consciousness coaching with you, or if at any time you want a session or to start with a session before diving in. I do also offer quantum and Akashic Records reading sessions, as I said, and so much more, which you will find on my website. If you would like to support me and my channelings and my free and public works such as this, additionally, all amounts donations are always appreciated through paypal.me/DSEnlightenedEdits. That is not a requirement, but I really appreciate those of you who reach out to do that so that it fuels more of my public works to help others such as this. With that, I will see and hope to and trust to see you next time, and look forward to seeing the ways that you change your story with intention or live it out more fully with the enjoyment of it. Be blessed with love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle. #Damsel at These Enlightened Edits of DamselDesigns.com.